This is a Nova kit car, and we're going to find out exactly what it's like to live with on a day-to-day basis. So we're currently sat on a single carriageway A road at 50 miles an hour. Obviously, as far as modern traffic standards go, it keeps up and it does what it needs to. And it's relatively smooth on a road like this. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. There are some wind noises, there's some obvious engine noises with the air cooled in the back, and there's a lot more vibrations and bounciness than you would expect to find in like a modern factory-built car, which is to be expected. We all know what we're getting into when looking at kit cars, and they're not exactly refined. You don't have those creature comforts and modern refinements in them unless you're going to go to the nth degree and re-engineer the whole car. But to me, that's part of the charm. It's what really evokes that feeling and makes them special and unique in a way. But it's fine, it's keeping up absolutely brilliant. And you know, when you're at an advanced age, I mean, we're no spring chickens now, we're well into our 30s, and you can tell once you've been driving it for a while that you probably want to get out and stretch your legs and stretch out. Perhaps if we were 15 years younger, it might not be so bad. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and time only goes one way. But even having said that, it's not horrifically uncomfortable. It's not the sort of thing where you're going to get out the other end and feel like you've become completely disabled. It's comfortable enough that if you're doing a reasonable journey, it's not going to be the end of the world. You know, I probably wouldn't want to do 100 miles in it without stopping, but certainly 7, 8, 9, 10 miles, 14 mile round trip, it's really not that bad at all. And for saying it's a classic kit car on a very old chassis, that's not too bad.
The suspension is akin to driving over a field that's been ravaged by moles.
Yeah, and full of rocks. But as I say, it's getting down the road all right, 50 mile an hour. I don't like to do much quicker in them because the shape of the front end means that you get some float on the front end and the steering can go a bit light, which if you find yourself in an emergency, you don't really want the steering light and the brakes light and everything else. So I like to keep it within the realms of safety rather than just pushing it for the sake of it. Finally, some vehicles slower than we are. Tractors, old ones at that. Right, so here we are at the breakfast outlet of choice, the big golden M on a stick. Now, of course, the most interesting part of going through, say, a drive-through in a vehicle like this is the fact that there are no openable windows. It's not as easy as just rolling down your window like it is in a standard car. The whole canopy's got to come up. So we're going to get that up and shout the code into the speaker box, and we'll see where we go from there. Yeah, it's TF45.
What was the code for there?
What was the what, sorry?
Can you just say the code again, please?
Yeah, TF45, so Tango Foxtrot 45. Here we go then, this should be interesting. Hey, alright. Should be TF45 on the app. It definitely evokes a certain sort of reaction.
We are very low.
And very loud.
Very loud and very low.
But what are the good near us on the speaker box? I mean, it's not what you consider the loudest car. It's not got a mega loud exhaust, but
no.
That air-cooled noise definitely produces a bit of a racket, especially if you're trying to speak on the speaker box. Collecting food is no easier either, because of course you're right down here on the floor.
Yeah, they have to pass it right out low.
Well, I can smell that coffee though. That is lovely. Going to be interesting. There's nowhere to put the drinks, is there?
No.
That's another thing. If you buy a kit car and you're doing work to it yourself,
fit cup holders.
Put cup holders in. You're right. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. Nice one. Thank you very much. Cheers. Right. Now I need to leg out of the way. One thing we have noticed then is the dashboard is great for holding a coffee. Perfect. But the body line on the side is not so good for a McDonald's Coke. Look at the angle of that. That's more tipped over than the Titanic. So a bit of an angle, isn't it? That?
Successful breakfast run complete. So while this car looks like it has many, many horsepower, the reality is that they all died many, many, many years ago.
Oh, hey.
Hey! Feeling better now?
Lots better, yeah.
All muffled out?
Shopping for Hilux parts now.
In the car park of the local eatery.
Well, whenever there's a chance, you got to get on it. So let's have a look at the power plant.
The
Or
enormous power plant.
not so power plant.
Right. There it is. The biggest engine in the world.
There's no need to lie. No, so it is a 1.6, a 1600 air cooled from a Beetle.
It's got all the power of about 3 hamsters with COPD.
that died
That died.
decades ago. But no, having said that, it's still a bit of fun, and it's still, for the weight of the car, it gets down the road all right. So let's talk about the most obvious thing with a car like this, and that's the way it looks and its styling. Now, it's fair to say this is quite oddball design and oddball styling, from the fact that the exit and entry point is a canopy that lifts up without any normal traditional doors or opening windows, and the fact that it is incredibly low. Seat height is incredibly low down. The entire car is incredibly low down. Everything is right hunkered down into the floor, as you can see. And then the fact that even with the roof up, the profile is still not enormous. Then there's the look of the interior. As we can see, it's smart, it's clean, it's functional, it does what it needs to do. Obviously, it hasn't got all the bells and whistles and toys and things like that in there that you're going to expect. However, the beauty about a kit car is the options and the potential for customization and adaptations are almost endless. If you wanted to, you could add a sat-nav system, a computer to run the vehicle. There isn't any major electrics in here, so it hasn't got to run anything fancy, any sensors or anything like that. You know, you can put digital speedos in, you can put interactive screens in, various different pieces of sound system. There's lots and lots of customization options and things that you can do to a car like this to really put your own stamp on it and make it your own. So from that end, this is why they appeal to people so much, because we all know the feeling. You know, when think back to when you was a young kid, certainly for me when I was a boy, I'd see a car like this driving by and it was just the best thing in the world. It was the most impressive thing. And you think styling from early like Lamborghini Countaches and Diablos and things like that, it's that outlandish kind of extreme style in a car like this that really gives it its mass appeal. And the fact that, again, the customization options are endless. So somebody who wants to build something of their own or a one-off, you really can do it with a car like this. Let's talk about its practicality. How practical is this as an everyday car? Well, just look at it. There's your answer. Having said that, it isn't bad on the road, okay? And it'll keep up with traffic flow from modern vehicles. As far as practicality goes on a day-to-day basis, though, it isn't the sort of car you'd want to do your daily commute in every day. Unless it was relatively short, you wouldn't want to be sat in traffic in it, and you certainly wouldn't want to be sat in traffic in the heat. So practicality-wise, yes, they're not the most practical. However, that brings me on to another point. A vehicle like this is a purely emotive purchase. There is no practical reasons to buy one. You know, you might think if you've got a growing family, you might buy an estate car, or if you've got work needs, you might buy a pickup truck. Those are practical purchases. There is no practical reason in anyone's mind why they would purchase a car like this. It is purely an emotive experience. And the biggest part of the appeal for a car like this is that emotion that it evokes from you, the feeling that it gives you while you use it or drive it, whilst you're turning heads in it, the noise it makes, the smells from the old engine, from an engine from the 60s and 70s. There is all that appeal to it. It's a huge mass appeal wrapped up into one package, and that is what really draws people into buying cars like this. Now, obviously, with this being a 1.6 air-cooled engine, an original Volkswagen engine from a Beetle or a camper, or they had many different applications, they're never going to produce the most amount of power. This is probably 60, 70 horsepower at best, and that's on a good day. So naturally, they're not going to be the fastest vehicle around. However, for the weight of the vehicle and what's actually on it, it performs well enough. You don't really want to be going much faster than, say, 50, 55 in this, because the front end gets very light and things start to get just a little bit dicey. So why buy one then? Well, there's a number of reasons, as I've already mentioned, why people buy a car like this. And the real and honest answer to that is going to be different for everybody, but certainly for us, it is that feeling that it evokes. It's that emotion that the car gives you. It's that feeling of going back in time, you know, being in something cool or that you always imagined as a kid. And it's the endless customization options. Obviously, this is a fiberglass body, so you've got the plus points of it's never going to rot for a start. Yes, there's a metal chassis underneath, but it's never going to rot on the body. Now, obviously, as well as that, the endless customization options, as I mentioned, give you the flexibility to do whatever you want with this vehicle. You can put your own stamp on it in so many different ways. You can change headlights, you can change the front end, you can change all the different style areas, you can change the interior, you can customize the interior, you can change engines with little to no effort. So overall, it just makes them a really good prospect for building the car that you want. So what should you look out for if you're going to buy a kit car then? Well, there's a few issues and a few areas that is commonplace to kit cars in the kit car market that you should keep your eye out for. Firstly is poorly executed wiring. Now, wiring in a kit car is something that should ideally only be done by somebody a professional or experienced, because we have found in kit cars that we've had in the past that people have put things together with dodgy house block connectors and all sorts of loose crimps and loose terminals. And let me tell you, in no uncertain terms, that is a fire or a disaster waiting to happen. Electric should not be meddled with by somebody who is not confident or competent. Now, that said, if you are a confident and competent wirer, then absolutely a project like this with poor wiring can be a great buy, and you can often pick them up very, very cheap. But it's all about safety. Now, in a car with regular doors, that's not necessarily an issue. However, in a car like this, if something goes wrong with the wiring, the first thing that gets taken out is the wiring loom to release the roof, and then it sets on fire, you are literally trapped in a fiberglass coffin. So that's a big issue to watch out for. Obviously then, another thing is a lot of kit cars are fiberglass body on a metal chassis. So you want to look out for rot in the chassis, rot in the suspension linkages, rot in the mounting points, where the body meets the chassis. Those are sorts of things that you need to know before you buy one, because then you can work out accurately what sort of time you've got in the project, what sort of money you've got to put into the project, and just how much hassle it's actually going to be. It's also really important when you're looking at taking on a project like a kit car to allow enough time to be able to build or finish a project like this. It's very, very easy to look at a car that you have strong emotional feelings for because you desire one and gloss over the fact that there's 1,000 hours work in it. You know, you might look at it and think, well, I could do that in a few weeks and that in a few weeks. Be realistic with yourself, because this car is 90% complete and really isn't far off being finished, but we probably still have 400 or 500 hours in it, getting it the way that we want it. And a lot of that is bodywork. So you've got to think, if you are looking for a concourse vehicle when at the end of the whole process, when it's all said and done, then you've got to appreciate that that is going to take time and skill and effort. And it's also really, really important to align those project goals with your current skill set. Can you do the work? Can you complete it yourself? Is your skill set great enough where you can do all of it without having to pay out labour? Because that's another thing to consider. If it isn't, you've then got a budget into it, somebody professional at certain aspects to be able to complete those tasks for you. And that is where the cost's going to come in and mount up. So to summarise then, the honest and clear reason that anybody buys or looks at a car like this is purely the way it makes them feel. It just draws out this emotion in you that takes you back to a childhood goal or a childhood dream. That's certainly what it does for me, and I know that it does the same for Dan. And driving them, they give you that thrill of just you, the car, and the road. There's no driver aids, there's no power steering, there's no fancy gadgets or electronics or anything like that. It is just pure driving experience, and that's part of what I love about it. Then you've got things like the nostalgic smells of engines from the 60s, 70s and 80s, all those, old carbureted petrol engines and the smells they give off. It really is just a totally emotive experience. And if you immerse yourself in it, you can learn to really enjoy a vehicle like this, and you can learn to really get the best out of it. And you need to do that because they are going to give you problem after problem after problem. After all, they are old technology. The engines are old technology. They go wrong. We all remember it, certainly back in, say, the early 90s when our parents had 70s and 80s cars, and you couldn't go on any long journey without the car breaking down or having problems or anything like that. These are no different. You have to be willing to accept that can happen, and you have to allow for it. Make sure you plan ahead, plan extra time on your journey, things like that. But really, to summarise, we love it, and we love kit cars, and we always have. And that's not going to stop. And we are going to turn this car into something that is a one-off creation that everybody loves and we love. So, to summarise, well, that's why you should get one. Listen, we're going to get this back to the workshop now, get it all put away and put to bed for the night. But tune in next time when we're going to start customising the interior and really bringing this up to the next level. Legends, if you would, I'd love it if you'd hit the subscribe button, keep up with all the updates on this project and others, and we will see you in the next one.